Need you to turn to page. Turn to page 14. First and fourth. Or 0, 1, 1, 3, and 4.
Yeah, coming during 0 hours, boss.
Okay. On page 14. Are we there? Let's go. Okay. We're going to start taking some notes today. I don't know why this isn't working. Okay. I'm going to go over with you guys kind of an overview of section 1 and explain a few things to you that you'll need to pay attention to. Okay. So this section is called Foundational Documents through the Declaration of Independence. What year was that? 1776. Okay. Now, first thing we're going to talk about these topics on page 14. We're going to look at what is a state, what is a nation, what is government, what is a nation state or country. We're going to look at the 4 theories on the origins of the state, like how states develop over time. And yes, one of them will be the divine right rule, where we had kings and queens. Okay. Then we'll take a deeper dive into the social contract theory, which is the 4th of the 4. We'll look at some of the political philosophies of people like Locke, Hobbes, Rousseau. Then we'll look at different forms of government based on different criteria. All right? We'll look at economic theories as types of governments, and then 5 basic concepts of democracy. After that, that's the first half of this section. You will have a 2-day test. First day will be over these first 6 things. Okay? The second day will be an essay test. Picking up with number 7, starting with the English traditions and the English constitutions, the Magna Carta, the English Petition of Rights, the English Bill of Rights, which will all have a profound impact on our Constitution. We will look at how the colonies developed, how their governments were structured, what we learned from that, what we took from that for our Constitution. We'll look at the American Revolution, the Revolutionary era leading up to the Declaration. So things like the Boston Massacre and so forth. Okay? Taxation without representation. What led to the split, the people there, the founding documents, the speeches, the important people that we talk about. And then last, the Declaration of Independence. So that's what you're going to be writing an essay over. Okay? If you go on Canvas and look at section 1 module, there's one file in there. It's a review sheet for the section 1 test. At the bottom of that review sheet is the essay question. Okay, so you know what the question is before you take the test. Okay, so you will come in that day and start writing. Then I'll send you a pass to 6th hour if you're not done yet. Okay? No, there's no note cards. There's no cheat sheets. Blank paper in your brain. Okay? Now, if you learn the stuff for the essay is easy. Okay? But you gotta like memorize it. Okay? Getting you ready for college. Okay? So, let us begin. And no better way, well, let's begin. Yeah, no better way to start than a quote from Winston Churchill at the top of page 14. Democracy is the worst form of government on earth except for all the rest. What does he mean by that? It still sucks. It's messy, guys. Democracy is ugly. It's messy. It's inefficient. It's frustrating. What our founders created, guys, was in fact a system of mutual frustration. Joe Biden and the Democrats control the House of Representatives right now. The Senate is 50-50. The Vice President, Harris, can break a tie vote in the Senate. But the rules of the Senate generally require you have 60 votes to pass anything. So when Republican senators refuse to go along with President Biden's plans, you think he's frustrated? Yeah. Guys, it's hard to pass a law in this country. They made it really difficult. And that's good. Because if it were easy to pass laws, we'd have a lot more laws. And laws are generally restrictions on your what? Your freedom. Okay? So democracy is messy. Now, we have a certain type of democracy in our country. It's not true democracy. It's a representative democracy or republic. Okay? So we'll talk more about that as time goes on. Okay? So there you go. You got Churchill. Let's start you guys with a basic definition of government. You've never had a government class before. Here you go. You ready? Boji, start writing. Government. Now, guys, when you take notes in here, you can do like, Roman numerals, A, B, C, D, that sort of thing. I'll try and tip you off when I'm starting a new, thing. Okay? A new header. Start with government. An institution through which a society makes and enforces public policy. An institution through which a society makes and enforces public policy. Now, what is public policy? Okay, first time we think public, okay? The word public, you should think government, public schools, okay? Public policy is all things that government does, is public policy. Does that make sense? All things that government does are public policy. This thing's supposed to follow me around. Doesn't seem to be working. Okay. All right. So all things that the government does is public policy. That could be laws. Yes. Could be regulations, rules. Okay. Mandates. All right. Now, a government rules over a state. What is a state? State is a politically organized unit. A politically organized unit. Now here's where it gets a little bit confusing. Is a state the same thing as a nation? You guys ever heard of Israel referred to as the state of Israel? The nation state. So yes, a state can be a nation, but it can also not be a nation. We have 50 states, yes? We're called the United States of America, which is a nation state. But we have 50 states, yes? So it's a politically organized unit. There are 4 characteristics of a state. How many characteristics? 4. Now, guys, sometimes on tests, when I say something like, how many are there? Those make for good short answer questions, like name 2 of the 4 characteristics of the state. Now, these are easy. This is simple, right? You need people. The first characteristic of a state is you need people. You need a population. As you know, the largest populated nation state in the world is China. Number 2, India. Number 3, the US. Number 4, the largest Muslim populated country in the world. It's on the other side of the world. It's an island chain called Indonesia. Then Brazil. Then Russia. You don't need to know all that. The smallest populated country in the world, nation state, Vatican City. Last count, 826. Okay. You need territory. You got to have people, you got to have territory. Second characteristic of a state. Now, if you look at a map, now you guys understand, when you look at maps, this is a flat map, yes? So the closer you are to the equator, the more accurate the map is. The further you get away from the equator on a flat map, the bigger the country looks than it actually is. Like Greenland looks huge. It's not that big. Okay, so you got to go to a globe, okay, and look at a globe to see the actual size of some of these. You guys know that about maps? I didn't know that until a few years ago. Okay, so the largest land mass for a nation state, Russia. The smallest, Vatican City. Okay. Any guys been there? You can walk around the entire country in about 40 minutes, something like that. Walled. It's a walled city. But yeah, it's pretty cool. One Sunday of the month at the Vatican, it's free to go into the museum. So the first time I went to the Vatican, my wife and I didn't plan this, but this is 99, and we were in Rome on a Sunday. And so we went to the Vatican, and the freaking line was like halfway around the country because it was the free day. But it was kind of cool because, I mean, the line went fast, but and people in line from all over the world, you know what I mean? So you're just talking to people and hearing people talk different languages, and it's pretty cool. And that day, the Pope was there. This is Pope John Paul II in 99. And so we were in St. Peter's Square, and it was packed with people. It was a free day. And the Pope was up in his chambers, his window. Okay, he looked about this big, okay, because it's far away. And then he came out and blessed everybody in the square in different languages, which was pretty cool. We didn't plan that. That happened. Okay, even though I'm not Catholic, it's still cool. Okay. I got a picture of the Pope. All right, sorry. Okay, the two other characteristics. Third is sovereignty. Let me spell that for you. Sovereignty. 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 To define sovereignty would be this: supreme and absolute power. Supreme and absolute power within its own territory. Michael, these words, the way you're writing them down, are important when you study for the test, because there's going to be a lot of words that are similar or have similar definitions, and you're going to need to be able to differentiate between some of these definitions. Supreme and absolute power within its own territory is called sovereignty. Now, using the term sovereignty, you can use it in a lot of different contexts. For instance, when you turn 16, you guys can get up and walk out of this room, out of this school, and never come back. You can drop out of school at 16. You gain some sovereignty there. When you're 18, you gain more sovereignty. You used to be able to buy cigarettes. You can't do that anymore. Okay? But you can vote. And I think you can still buy a rifle. Shotgun. Yes. You got to wait till you're 21 to buy a handgun. And when you're 20, when you're 18, you can also be drafted into the military. And when you're 21, you can drink, buy a handgun, which is a good combination. Yeah. Now, maybe on your 21st birthday, you go and get drunk and buy a gun. Bad combination. And maybe a pack of smokes while you're at it. So, you know, when I have students turn 18, I've been teaching a long time. I have students turn 18. They say, "It's my birthday." I'm saying, "Happy 18." So you can go out and buy some smokes today. I can't do that anymore. They changed the law. Did people get grandfathered in? Like if you were 18 already? No, you got to wait till you're 21. Now, when they changed the drinking age, people that were already 18 got grandfathered. Yeah. Yeah, I was 17 when they changed the law in Florida. Not kidding. Yeah, my sister. She was 19 when they changed it. So I just talked to my sister. Yes. She was a mess. Sorry, Michelle. She watches my videos sometimes. Yeah. Oh, I do have subscribers. Mr. Ebright is the YouTube channel. Okay. Now listen, if you ever miss class, now I'm recording I got 3 missed in the day. You can go back on Mr. Ebright YouTube channel. Look at the date. Okay. I'm going to be somewhere close to that lecture around that date in 2021. Okay. Or 2020. I think I have just about every lecture I do on YouTube somewhere. You can find it. Okay. Okay. We need a 4th characteristic of the state. Yes?
Yes.
Government. Government is the 4th characteristic of a state, which is a politically organized unit. Yes? Or an institution through which society makes and enforces its public policy. Yes? Yes. Okay. Now, these 4 characteristics of a state. Now, the next thing we look at is the origins of a state, how they come about. And we're going way back. Okay, looking back at early history, early man. Any guys watch that movie, that thing, that HBO show that was really good, with the dragons? Game of Thrones? Any guys watch that? I got Netflix, so I had to get the discs like one at a time. Took me like 3 years to watch it. Game of Thrones, fantastic. Okay. Anyhow, all right. So there's 4 different origins of state. How many? 4. Okay. The first origin of state is called the force theory. Force, like the force is with you. Okay. Force theory. This is where one person or group of people force another group of people in an area to submit to their power. So one person or group of people force another group of people in an area to submit to their power. So let's think about this historically. You guys have heard of, say, like Genghis Khan. What did Genghis Khan do? He conquered, and he forced people to submit to his will. Okay? Think about the Vikings. Same thing, yes? Now, the Vikings tended to be nomadic, like they would conquer and move on, raid, pillage, move on, raid, pillage, you know what I mean? But eventually they settle. Okay? And once they settle, that's how a state is formed, through the force theory. And if you go back in human history, that's how most countries started. Most states were formed through the force theory. You with me? Another way that they developed is the second origin of the state. And that's called the evolutionary theory. Evolutionary. It will evolve over time. Okay? The evolutionary theory says this. You start with a family. The family grows. You get a clan. The clan grows. You get a tribe. Now, when we think of tribes, right, we think of like Native American tribes, yes? Now, typically, Native American tribes tended to be nomadic, yes? Where they would move from one place to another, yes? Now, once tribes settle in an area, in a territory, create a state. So you'll get a government, you have population, you have territory, they will have sovereignty over that territory and form a government of some sort. And that's how a lot of nations were started. A lot of nation states were started, but through this evolutionary theory. Does that make sense? The third theory of the origin of government, or origin of state, is the divine right theory. God rest her soul, Queen Elizabeth, okay, led an amazing and fascinating life, okay. If you have not watched The Crown on Netflix, I would encourage you, especially like the first season, because it shows how she comes to power as a young woman, becomes Queen of England, okay, and she will reign, you know, after World War II to today as the Queen of England. Okay, but as a young woman, she lives through World War II. You know, she's 96. Okay, so her father was king, and you know, she was groomed for this job. Okay? And I would say she's one of the most adored people on the planet. Okay, she's an amazing woman. She was an amazing woman. Now. Divine right means this. God gave people a divine right to rule over others. Now, King Louis XIV of France, or King Henry VIII of England, claimed the divine right to rule. Did God actually give them that power? No. Did they claim that power? Yes. And they held dominion over their kingdoms with this theory that God gave them that power. Now, if you know the Bible, there are a couple of instances where people ask God for a king, and God grants them a divine right king. Who are they? David, right? Remember? David? And Saul, yeah. Okay? So, I mean, in reality, I guess, there is a divine right situation. Okay? Most of what we had was not truly divine. Okay? At least that I'm aware of. I guess that's between God and them, huh? Now, the fourth origin of state is a break from the divine right, and it's called the social contract theory. The social contract theory. This is what we have. Okay? Let me define it for you. Social contract. Government is an agreement between people and government. So throughout the centuries of divine right rule, most of the people submitted to their king or queen, bought into this divine right. Many people did. But there were always people out there that challenged this idea. Okay? Now, you guys are familiar with the Romans and the Greeks, right? The Roman Senate, Greek democracy. These people were around before a lot of this divine right stuff of the kings and queens of Europe that we think about, or the czars of Russia. So the Greeks and the Romans thought about this stuff too. And this is what Socrates said, that he didn't describe it as a social contract, but he described it. This is what Socrates said. Now, Socrates was put in jail. Okay? They jailed him. And he said this: my argument why I should stay in jail is based on the idea that my entire way of life is based on laws. My life is based on laws. Your life is based on laws. This is the U.S. Constitution. This is the supreme law of the land. This is our social contract. We all must abide by it. Socrates said when he did not abide by those laws that he was bound to, he has to agree to the punishments of violating. We have great benefit because of this document. Not included in this, but added to this, was the U.S. Bill of Rights, correct? Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of the press, the right to assemble, the right to petition our government, the right to keep and bear arms, the right to not have soldiers in our homes, not to be searched or seized by our government without a warrant, the right to a trial by jury, the right to no double jeopardy, the right to counsel, the right to a speedy trial, the right to no cruel and unusual punishment. We all benefit from living under this Constitution, and therefore when we violate these laws and these rules set out by our contract, our social contract, we must suffer the punishments. Must abide or suffer the punishments. And that's why he said, I have entered into a contract with the government, and I have to keep my part by staying in jail. Okay? It's an agreement. Now, this agreement between people and the government, there's a lot of different ideas that people come up with for different forms of government. And that's what we've got to study. Okay? Time we get out of here. 35. Okay, you remember the first day of class? Syllabus. I said, there's gonna be like 3 days this semester where I tell you you need to read something and come back and be ready to discuss it tomorrow. Tonight is one of those nights. Okay? So I've got 5 pages of reading. Turn the page. These are 3 different social contract theories. Now, John Locke's second treatise on civil government is like 300 pages long. Okay? I condensed this into just over like 3 pages for Locke. Hobbes, I've got a short summary on that. Okay? Locke, a little bit longer if you add the second treatise on civil government. Okay, I will post this assignment tonight for these 5 questions on page 18. It's optional. So while you're reading this, if you want to give it your best shot at these 5 questions, I'll give you 2 points each. Okay, just give me your best shot. This is written in English, but it was written in 1790. No, 1690, excuse me. 1680. Yeah, 1680 was written. Okay. It is written in English. Is it hard to understand? For some of you, it will be. You might have to read it twice. Okay. And then the last page, page 19, is on Rousseau. Okay. It sounds French, but it's really Swiss. Okay. Now, what am I going to want to hear tomorrow when I come into class? I'm going to say something like this. So, what was the major theme that you got out of Thomas Hobbes' theory on social contract? What did you think about it? Did you agree with it? What did you agree with? What didn't you? What did you thought was like insane about it? Or what made sense? Okay. We'll do the same with Locke. We'll do the same with Rousseau. So tomorrow's class will be a discussion over these 3 political philosophers. Okay. Now, this has a big impact on this class going forward in the sense that you understand the why we chose our form of social contract. One of these 3 men we will borrow from for the Declaration of Independence and for the U.S. Constitution. We will borrow greatly from. Others will teach us different ideas to be avoided, not to adopt. Okay? So, got that? I'll post that tonight. After class, I'll post that. Okay? All right. So, continuing with a few notes, okay? We've got your social contract theory. Get out of 35, so let's do a little bit more, okay? So, new header here. Forms of government. This is where things start to get confusing. Forms of government. Now, we're going to use different things, different criteria to discuss forms of government. The first criteria we're going to use to discuss different forms of government is the geographic distribution of power. So, header, forms of government, subheader, geographic distribution of power. The first form we're going to talk about is called unitary government. I'm going to draw a little graphic here. Okay, unitary system. So these are all systems, okay? So this unitary system. Okay? Unitary system is this. Centralized government controls all the power. Centralized government has all the power. They dictate to state and local governments, or regional and local governments. All power is in one location. Most countries in the world today use a unitary system. We do not, although you might think it. Okay? So, think about this. Think of the big unit, the national government. Okay? Now, in Wichita, Kansas, the highest elected position of government in Wichita, Kansas is what? The mayor? The mayor? Yes. Okay. Now, who gets to elect the mayor? Yeah, the people who live in Wichita. Now, does the mayor of Wichita take his orders from Washington, D.C.? No. No. This is May's school district. It's local government. Do they take their orders from the U.S. Department of Education in Washington, D.C.? They have some regulations, but no. May's 266 is different than 259. These are school board members. Who elects them? The people that live in those school districts. Okay? It's local government. We don't use this. Okay? Here, the people at the state and local governments take their orders from the national government. They're merely representatives of the national government, not representatives of local government. Does that make sense? Okay. The next system that we'll talk about, you've heard of before. It's called, anyone? Confederal system. Does anybody know what our first constitution was called? The Articles of Confederation. Okay? So guys, we broke away from Britain, right? We had 13 colonies that became 13 states. The only thing holding those states together was the Second Continental Congress in Philadelphia. And then they wrote a constitution, the Articles of Confederation, where states retained all the power. The national government was given very little say or power, so the states dictated to the national government. The opposite of a unitary system. You need me to define that? Let me define that for you. An alliance of independent states. An alliance of independent states. Can any of you guys think of a confederal system, a country that uses a confederal system today? Russia is actually a confederal system. Very corrupted. Canada is a good example of a confederal system. Now they don't call themselves states in Canada. What do they call them? provinces, right? So in Quebec, here, what is the official language of Quebec? French. The rest of them speak English. And in Quebec, they take that very seriously. You understand? Very seriously. Now, Canada has a national healthcare system. How did that's very powerful central government, guys. When you have a national healthcare system, how did they get that with a weak central government? Well, all the provinces agreed to it. Okay? So they retain a lot of autonomy, but they also tend to give the national government a pretty big say in their lives. So the tin pot dictator up there, what's his name, Trudeau, he has a lot of power. Okay, sorry. I seriously think that guy is Fidel Castro's son. I don't know if you guys have heard about that. You guys know who Trudeau is?
Yeah.
Remember when Canada was going through all the COVID stuff? The truckers? This is like last year, the truckers in Canada? They said all the truckers had to be vaccinated. Dude, truckers sit in a cab by themselves. You know what I mean? So they protest. Okay? And Trudeau's like, I'm not a fan, sorry. Okay. That's why I call him a little tin pot dictator, okay? Because he thinks he is. Okay? Ready for that guy to lose his job. All right. Wake up, Canada. All right, so I'm going to save the third one for tomorrow. Okay?
Stop recording. Stop recording. Yes.